What's going on? Rob Fish here in the Bike Bandit Garage. In this video, we're going to talk about inspecting, adjusting, and replacing the clutch components on your motorcycle. But first, we're going to talk specifically about what is a clutch and its function on the motorcycle. Then we're going to talk about inspecting a clutch, again, and adjusting a clutch, and finally we'll be replacing a clutch on this here KTM, namely the fiber plates, the metal plates, and the clutch springs as well. So this video is going to apply to those of you with a traditional plate-style clutch system, but not to those of you that might be running, let's say, an automatic or a semi-automatic clutch system such as a Recluse, or those of you that might be, let's say, have a slipper clutch system installed. For those systems, you're going to want to follow the instructions according to your specific product. Let's get started. First off, let's discuss exactly what a clutch is in its basic function. A clutch is a mechanical way of disconnecting the power created by the engine from the drive system. Traditionally mounted on the left handlebar, by pulling in the lever, you create that disconnect. So how do you even know when your clutch needs changing? There are a couple ways to tell. Let's assume your chain and sprockets and your rear tire are all in decent shape. It just might be that your clutch is worn out. If you twist the throttle open and you hear the engine actually build up revs but it's not pulling forward like it should, or the opposite, the bike actually creeps forward when the clutch should be disengaged, then the clutch could either be just out of adjustment or it could be totally shot. Clutches are controlled in one of three ways: via cable actuation, hydraulic actuation, or via an auto clutch. Remember, in this video, we're not going to discuss auto clutches, and although we're going to talk a bit about hydraulic clutches, we're going to primarily focus on the cable type, as those are the most common types used today. Make sure that the cable itself is not in any way damaged, it's not frayed or kinked or misrouted, and come on, replace it if it needs to be replaced, huh? Next, we need to set the free play of the lever. With the properly adjusted clutch, there should be a minimum of 1/8 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch between the end of the lever and the perch, with the lever in a released state. If the clutch lever is tight against the perch without any noticeable free play within the cable's pull from a released position, the cable needs to be adjusted to actually allow some slack. This will allow the full clutch engagement. Now, on the other hand, if the clutch cable is too tight, it will cause the clutch to slip since it will not allow the clutch to fully engage. Think of it as a sweet spot of the lever. Hydraulic clutches are generally considered to be adjustment-free, and usually any problem that does occur is caused by air having been introduced into the system. Perhaps there's a leaking seal, or during maintenance it was not properly bled. The only way to bring a hydraulic system back to tip-top shape would be to properly bleed it, fully removing all the air from the system. So far, we've dealt with the clutch components on the outside of the bike, the cable and the free play with the cable itself from the perch. Now we'll dive inside and we'll look at the actual plates. The clutch plates are actually two different styles. One set is a metal plate, either steel or aluminum, and the others are known as the fiber plates. They're placed in a staggered fashion within the clutch, and when engaged, friction between them actually connect the engine to the rear wheel. It's as easy as that. The metal plates are pretty stout, but can become warped with the intense heat being created by the friction inside. On the friction plates themselves, the friction material wears out with time and use. A similar example would be your brake pads. So let's use my trusty KTM 450 EXC here as our work bike. It's a 2009 and it still has its stock clutch in it. You and I will both be looking at it for the first time together. Feel that the lever's good and I'm getting all my power to the ground, and I ride pretty mellow because I'm old, but it has been 6 years. Before we dive in, first things first, have a clean bike, as the last thing you want to do is drop dirt inside your engine. Now, we'll need to shut off the fuel at the petcock. So here's a great question: do you need an oil change on your bike? And I say that as this job can actually be done with either the bike laying on its side, no oil change needed, or vertically on your race stand. But then you'll actually need to drain your oil like we did here. Depending on the make and the year of your bike, we can now take off the clutch cover. Most newer bikes actually have a quick access cover, whereas older bikes, you'll actually be removing the entire whole side cover plate. Your rear brake pedal usually will be in the way of removing the cover, but it can be held out of the way by inserting a long screwdriver, kind of as a wedge. Now you should have access to remove the screws that are holding the cover on. Loosen them in a crisscross pattern and remove them. Remember that there's a gasket underneath here, and tapping around the edge before you remove the cover usually will, 1, keep it in its place, and 2, keep it intact. I did order another gasket, just in case this one gets damaged upon removal. Here we see the bolts that are holding on the pressure plate. Loosen these up, again in a crisscross manner, and go ahead and remove the plate. Now, using a pick if you need, remove all the clutch discs from the basket itself. Now we can visually inspect the old components, and we're looking for anything that shows signs of unusual wear. Taking a pair of calipers, if you want, you can measure the thickness of your fiber discs, and you can get an idea of your rate of wear. Check your manual for original specs. Hey, maybe your plates don't even need to be replaced. Of course we're going to replace all of these, but perhaps you can extend the change a while if everything looks fine. Take a look at the metal plates for signs of scorching or bluing, warping or cracking, or areas of excessive wear. Follow the same inspection process for the inner hub splines, looking for obvious notches. Now do the same for the basket, checking each tower for signs of wear. So far we've checked the lever, the cable, the fiber plates, the metal plates, the pressure plate, the inner hub, and the basket. We're almost ready to put it all back together, while either replacing worn items or just replacing a whole clutch kit, which would include the new fiber plates, new metal plates, and new clutch springs as well. Just a couple more items to check. Remember that the springs lose their strength over time, so those are usually replaced, but sometimes they're actually reused to keep the lever pull a bit easier for you. Remember that those springs are working every time you pull on the clutch lever, so it's best to replace them. Also, the bolts that hold them in, yep, check those too. It's pretty rare, but I've heard of them bending or stretching, or even stripping off the threads altogether. Now, once all the components check out okay, we can begin the process of reassembly. Now there's a few steps here that are absolutely crucial to the smooth operation of your motorcycle and also having your new parts break in properly. One is that you're going to want to soak your new fiber plates in oil for about 24 hours beforehand. This lets them soak up a little oil and gives them a coating so that upon restarting the engine, they're not rubbing against the metal plates totally dry. Here's an easy way of doing this. Go to your kitchen and grab a gallon-sized freezer bag. Put the fiber plates in the bag and add enough oil to cover them up. Use the oil that you'll be putting in the transmission. Petroleum is better than synthetic here, I think, and absolutely don't use an oil that has moly in it. Moly is an additive that reduces friction, and since we're trying to increase friction in the clutch, well, that'd be counterproductive. With the clutch hub ready to accept the plates, start inserting the plates, making sure to start and finish with a fiber plate. The metal plates will actually have a round edge and a sharp edge. Personally, I feel that the metal plates should be installed with a sharp edge facing the pressure plate to avoid excessive outer hub wear, but check the manual on your specific bike. Most important though, is that all the plates are facing the same way, either in or out. Here's a tip for you, especially you off-roaders out there. It's possible to change out your existing metal plates for steel-specific ones, and doing this will give you a little extra flywheel weight, minimize transmission oil fouling, and make them basically last forever. Now that all the plates have been correctly placed onto the hub, you can now install the pressure plate itself. Now, check your manual, as your bike might have specific markings that need to be lined up for a correct install. Drop the springs into the holes, place the bolts through the springs, and begin to snug them down, but do it in a crisscross manner to evenly apply pressure onto the clutch. Now, check your manual and tighten it down to the specific torque values. So there you have it, just a quick how-to video on inspecting and changing out your clutch. We hope you found this video helpful. Here we put a couple links to the products used in the video. If this is your first time joining us in the Bike Bandit Garage, remember to hit the red button and do us a favor, subscribe to our channel. With each new video, you'll be in the loop, learning more about how to work on your motorcycle and, that's right, saving money by doing the work yourself. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you soon. Now it's time to go ride.